What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck did I just watch? You are listening to What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at WTF Did I Just Watch? Thanks for joining us, and here's our latest episode.
All right, and we're back. So, it's been a while, maybe? I don't know. So,
About a month?
a month? It's been a month, yeah, okay. It just doesn't seem like it, but all right. So, today we have a lovely guest by the name of Rick Isbell. I met him now, we talked about it about 20 some odd years ago when I used to work at Hollywood Video. I worked with his wife, and he kind of hung around and helped us out. So he was free labor, which is always nice.
Well, I used to work at a video store when I was younger, so
Yeah,
it was like picking up again where I was.
yeah.
Oh, good.
And as always, I got my wonderful co-host Jenny. Today we are going to do the John Cusack classic Better Off Dead, 1985.
Good year.
Good year, 1985.
I remember it well.
Yeah, so we'll roll into this movie. Brief synopsis. After his girlfriend ditches him for I would say, douchebag of a ski jock,
Right?
Lanes decides that he wants to off himself. And every attempt just does not seem to work right. So that's the best way to describe it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a teenage angst meets super weird. There's just so many different odd things that happen in this movie. That's why I love it so much.
It's if John Hughes decided to take a little acid trip and
well, it's like the darker side of So Steve Holland, savage Steve Holland, did several of these movies. This was his first, and then he kind of went up, and then he stopped making movies and started doing TV. But all of them are marked by just weird, extra little what's going on in your head kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't really think they played with this before he started doing it. Not the crazy ass way that he did. You know what I mean?
Well, what's really crazy is this is semi-autobiographical. Yes. So a lot of these things happened to him, and he actually wrote it down in his diary and made a short film that Henry Winkler saw at a festival and kind of got him started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to clarify, so the real autobiographical part, if you don't mind me jumping in, is so his girlfriend in high school did leave him for a ski captain, and he became very suicidal. And he did try to kill himself. I think he tied a noose to a pipe in his garage while standing on a plastic garbage can, and garbage can collapsed under him, and he fell into the garbage can. And I know this is not supposed to be funny, but if you've seen any of our shows before, we know there's something wrong with me. But and it broke the pipe, and he almost got drowned in a garbage can full of water from Chinese. And his mom, of course, came out and was like, "What the fuck you do?" And after that, right? He wrote a journal of stupid ways to try to kill yourself and what would happen from it. And that was what you referred to, the little short film he made. So
well, and it's just fun. During the whole movie, some of the little things in his life that he just stuck in there, like the TV dinners for Christmas and stuff like that. It's just really funny.
Having a Johnny Gasparini, the newspaper boy, coming after him for money.
Yeah.
$2. I want my $2.
You may have never seen this movie, but I will bet you that if you've never seen it, you've run into people that heard somebody say something $2, and they will suddenly go, "I want my $2." It's because of this movie.
It's definitely because of this movie. And I'm sure John Cusack has heard that many, many of times in his life. So if I ever see him at con, I'm going to say, "I want my $2," because
it makes me mad that he not mad. I think it's kind of funny that he kind of didn't like the movie at first, and I guess it's grown on him. But he used to kind of push away any questions about it, but he's I guess he's come around.
Yeah. Yeah, according to Steve Holland, like apparently after he had a previewing of it, like John Cusack walked out after the first 20 minutes and then basically told Steve Holland that this is a terrible writer director and he never wanted to work with him again and that he like ruined his life and just crazy stuff like that. And I think one interview Steve Holland said it was like the second time he had his heart broken because it just and that's obviously severed their relationship. I believe One Crazy Summer was in filming when John Cusack saw
it wasn't pre-production from what I read. And Cusack was already contracted to do One Crazy Summer, which was the follow-up film, which is not as zany as this one, but we can save that for another. I mean, we could save that for another time.
It's a little more coherent, I would say.
It's definitely more coherent. I mean,
but to be clear, it's also not a sequel, though it feels very sequel-esque.
That's true.
And it does have some of his animation in there.
Yeah.
That's very much true. Because he does, yes, later he goes into animation. I was telling Jenny earlier that I did not realize
Steve Holland, not John Cusack.
Not Cusack. Yeah, Steve Holland. That he did one of the craziest 90s cartoons that I love called Eek the Cat.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I mean, it was on Fox. It was a really crazy cartoon. And I'm like, this makes sense. This all checks now. Okay.
He also did the Whammies on Press Your Luck.
That's right. Yeah. And that also is zany and crazy.
Right? No whammies.
Sorry, crazy dog moment for me.
So Rick,
the whammy. I read that and thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh my God, he animated the whammy. That was like my favorite game show as a kid because of the whammy.
Right?
He's responsible for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Rick, you picked this movie for us, and that's why you decided to join us. So I have to ask, what is your fond memory of this movie that made you go, I really want to talk about this movie?
To me, I feel like I have to be evangelical about it because not a lot of people can recall the movie. I mean, it didn't make big bucks at the box office. It wasn't. It was kind of a cult classic. And to me, it just was so hilarious. I love the little asides and little funny bits that they throw in there and things that they say and the words and the word usage. To me, it pretty much summed up the 80s. And I remember being a teenager and watching the movie and thinking, this is the funniest shit I've ever seen. And not a whole, like I say, not a whole lot of people will recall it. So I like to talk about it and I always quote it. So thank you for considering doing this.
No, it was great. As soon as John, I was like, yeah, my friend Rick wants to be on and he wants to do Better Off Dead. I was like, yes, I love Better Off Dead.
Great. Love it.
So Jenny, go ahead with your story about Better Off Dead. Tell us your fond memory of this movie.
So two things always stand. Well, yeah, I say what stands out most is the newspaper boy and like just the progression of him trying to get his $2, which I think would equate now to like $5.80 or something like that.
Right.
But and I was just the actor, the young actor, his name was Damian Slade, I believe. And the newspaper boy was Johnny Gasparini. This was the character's name, but I don't think they ever really said it. Maybe once in the movie. But just
he does say Johnny.
Johnny. He was just epic. And I read a trivia later that said that Damien, the actor, was like, I just came into it like I was a serial killer and not in a funny way. Like I seriously was coming in like this character. And it makes sense because when you see this guy, this little kid is like intense as hell and looks scary and intimidating, even though he's 4 foot tall. And it's just, it starts with just the knock at the door, then it goes to he's following and stalking John Cusack's character around. So then he has extra newspaper boys coming and stalking him and, following him up the mountain.
So he can ski.
Yes, exactly. It's just ridiculous, but it just sticks in your mind. And the whole $2 thing is just really this boy works hard for $2 and he wants it. And it always stuck in my head so much. And then the other one was the most ridiculous scene in the movie, the animated claymation hamburger, stop motion hamburger. The everybody wants the Frankenburger.
Yeah.
Which it's a scene that makes no sense. but it's also a scene like when you watch it, it's John Cusack's character Lane, who's like in this his first day at this crappy fast food restaurant run by the guy from Porky's.
Yeah, the guy from Porky's.
And
Activate
you know,
your program.
like you could just see it because I mean, maybe it was just me, but you know, even now as an adult, but especially as a kid, when I get bored, I would just play movies in my head and you know have weird conversations or whatever. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a stop motion hamburger being resurrected by a mad scientist or anything, but it would be weird shit and things to entertain me. So like it just spoke to me because here was somebody else putting my crazy sort of on the screen, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just fun and silly and made no sense and like, but it stuck. And the weird thing, I also read that as they tested, this was one of the more positively tested scenes in the movie. That
Yeah,
it got like people really liked it.
Well, the original scene that's in the script was they were going to
Eat fried rat.
Eat fried rat.
Eat fried rat, yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, that's definitely a lot better. But wow. I mean,
and, did you guys know that the paperboy during the car wash scene, he broke that windshield?
No.
I did read that trivia.
Cracked the windshield. That's so hilarious. And that's pretty hard to do with a newspaper.
I mean, psycho killer.
Boy was being sillier. He was like, I will kill this guy. Oh, so my third thing, the runner-up thing, was Badger the brother, who never has one line in the whole movie. He doesn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
But that character was just so quiet and intense, and everything he tried worked that I was like, damn.
Yeah. The cutting out of all the little box tops before the cereal was finished.
Yeah, my parents would have kicked my ass.
I would have been beaten with the cereal box. He wanted that rocket. That's what it was.
He did. Yes,
he really wanted that rocket, and you know how to pick up sleazy women. So,
somehow, what was your thing?
I mean, my recollection of this movie. So, I kind of went on a John Cusack kick after watching Grosse Pointe Blank.
Oh, good movie.
I want to say I was in high school, so not obviously when this movie came out because it was you know before this. But I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go kind of through his library and see different kind of movies he did, you know. And most people are like, oh yeah, he was in Pretty in Pink, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I came across this movie, and all I remember really when I first watched it, I'm like, oh, it's got Booger from Revenge of the Nerds.
Right.
Curtis Armstrong.
I mean, I think he's a funny actor, and everything he's done,
he really does.
He's always going to be Booger. I mean, that's the role that I mean, he's half Booger and half his character from Risky Business in this movie. That's essentially his character into one character. And so I watched this movie the first time I watched it, and I go, man, this is really funny. This is so weird and crazy, and it's just totally up my alley. And I'm like, this is great. And now I watched it again just recently, and I'm like, boy, is this dark and strange. Very
Which
disjointed.
Is why I always loved it.
Right. And then another reason why I enjoyed it initially when I was younger was, you know, his original girlfriend that dumps him, Amanda Weiss, who was you know, one of the characters, victim number one from Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. So I was like, okay, she was good also in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was also before this. So I was like, okay, great. And again, now watching it again, I'm like, man, this is kind of creepy because the opening with him and all the pictures of her, not to mention I watched this with my wife and my both of my in-laws. And they've never seen it before.
Oh no.
So hearing their commentary on it, like, okay, this guy's obsessed.
It was a little stalkerish.
Yeah, this is too stalkerish.
That scene opens where, like, I think the father says he's obsessed with his girlfriend, and then they shoot to him being in his room. And go ahead.
But I mean, and all the different actors that they got for this. I mean, Kim Darby, who, what is it? Not Wyatt Earp. I'm sorry. What is it? The John Wayne.
Oh, I know what movie, but I can't think of what it is. Rooster. Is Rooster Cogburn?
No. It's one.
It's been remade.
It's been remade. True Grit.
I guess. True Grit. There we go.
True
That's
Grit.
what it was.
It's the little girl from True Grit, all grown up.
Yeah.
But
apparently
but
she went at John Wayne and would like actively try to piss him off. And I'm like, you go.
Yeah.
Go
But
Ian
if you
Garvey,
see
go.
her in this movie playing the mother role and see her next to John Cusack, you kind of go, wait a minute. They look like they're the same age because she does not look much older than him, and she's 20 years older than him, which blows my mind because I'm like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, she just really looked young.
She really looked young. And then you have, the father who what
David
is
Ogden
the
Steers.
yeah, exactly. For
Winchester,
MASH.
was that the name from MASH?
Winchester for MASH. Exactly. Yep. And I just remember, watching MASH reruns with my dad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Winchester. So I'm like, cool. And then
classically trained artist who always brings like gravitas and excellence to anything he does. Acting in this part, it was lovely. Him out in his wife's negligee cover, trying to close the garage door
before this psychopath, breaks the last window.
Yeah,
right.
Or later on in the aardvark fur coat, that was hilarious as well.
So warm.
Yeah, and then you have like the crazy gardener who is the director of this movie, which is kind of funny. Because he has those like weird moments that you're like, why is this weird character here? And
I saw that. Did that make you think about Peacemaker, where they had that neighbor, the old neighbor next door?
Yeah, the real random
house?
neighbor. Exactly.
And I wonder if James Gunn was pulling from this for that.
Probably, because this does feel like if and again, like I said, it gives you the feel almost like a John Hughes film. Like, because that's what the 80s was when it came to teen comedies. It was John Hughes and then everybody else. So this is everybody else, but it gave you that kind of feel. But then it just started doing some weird, bizarre things, almost like a parody.
It's like Steve Holland went. So John Hughes, it was like the proper, basically the popular crowd with the one person trying to fit in was kind of the John Hughes films. And like, this is like Steve Holland went to, let's go to all the outcasts and make the teen film about them with the John Hughes sort of framework.
Right, exactly.
Again, it's probably why it spoke to me so much, because it was my people as opposed to the crowd that I was.
I mean, again, we're all about people. I know I am, and I know Jenny's an oddball, and Rick, you're kind of odd yourself. But it's still something about this movie. Let alone the poster is Drew Struden. Am I saying his name right? The guy who did the Back to the Future poster. The guy who did what else did he do? E.T., some of the Star Wars ones. I mean, this guy's like known for doing like these amazing posters of the 80s. And then he does something like this, and you're like, holy cow, this is so weird. And then, the weirdest of the weird, you've got Chosen in this from The Karate Kid Part 2. Doing he's the
Yuji, right?
Yeah.
Yuji Okamoto. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Took me a minute.
The crazy Cosell, what was it? What was the news anchor?
Howard Cosell.
Yeah,
Howard Cosell.
But unfortunately they wouldn't let Yuji's voice be used, which I think I would have loved to hear how he did it, his imitation of Howard Cosell.
Oh yeah.
He like practiced so hard on it, and then they dubbed him over with Rich Little doing his imitation of Howard Cosell instead. So you never actually hear Yuji Okamoto's voice.
And that's how we got the part. He auditioned like that. They liked it so much, they kept it in, and then they went and did the back end run because the movie execs were being jerks.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have the wonderful foreign exchange student.
I love
Monique Juneau, played by Diane Franklin. Yes.
Diane Franklin, who I admittedly have had a crush on her because of so many things that she's done. I mean, most people will really recognize her as Princess Joanna in Bill and Ted's.
Right.
And I remember her as Karen, I believe it was, in The Last American Virgin. She was also in the Annabelle Possession, which is the second Annabelle movie. I mean, again, I remember just having a little crush on her. So when I was like, she's in this movie, great. And then she has like no real lines except like really bizarre over the top French, which is funny. I mean, the movie's all over the place, but
the
in
whole
all
the whole
places,
tentacles thing, the whole testicles.
What's his
And
testicles all over me? Wait. Testicles? Like an octopus arms.
In T, big difference. Big difference. I had a crush on her too, JP. Big time. I just love her. I think she's just the cutest thing ever. Love that curly hair. Did you know she talked Dodger Stadium into letting her come and sing? Well, she wanted to do a signing, but they let her sing the national anthem instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had her manager contact them, and she was hoping it would also be partially as a promo for the movie. And I guess when they announced her, they just said her name and didn't give any reference to
wow, that's
who she was or her work. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's wasted. She got to sing the national anthem in Dodger Stadium, but
right,
hadn't really been the only goal she was going for. But yeah. Oh, I have to bring this up. The original blurb for the movie, well, not the original, the reconsidered blurb, because originally it was a reference to sometimes you're better off dead, and people were a little testy about that, perhaps encouraging suicide, so they changed it. But that was going along with the movie. It was, you've blown up your neighbor's mom. Your 7-year-old brother has better luck with women than you do. Your girlfriend has a new boyfriend. Relax. You're never better off dead.
I think that just sounds much worse.
Yeah. But now they're not going to get sued.
I mean, that's true. That's true. I mean, considering that this movie is making fun of offing yourself,
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you look at the poster and the art, you think that this is kind of be like It's a Wonderful Life, kind of. Just kind of he's on the ledge. Here's all this stuff going on, and you're like, oh, okay, this is like, what if you offed yourself? These things would have happened, and that's not what this movie is.
It's a bunch of botched attempts.
It's some mighty botched attempts, exactly.
Suicide's never the answer, little camper.
Curtis Armstrong was just a genius in this.
He was. I really like his character. He cracks me up through the whole thing, like laughing at what's his face when he called him his girlfriend.
Friend, yeah.
I
thought was beautiful on so many levels, because it totally ruined the bullying.
Yeah,
because you have Roy Stalin is the ski captain that stole John Cusack's girlfriend, and he's a dick. And so the actor's name is Aaron Dozier, and he was up for the part. He came in, looked over at what ended up being Savage Steve Holland, and asked somebody who is the fat surfer guy or something along those lines, like was completely rude and a complete and got the part because Steve Holland was like, yeah, that's our Roy Stalin right there. This guy's clearly a jerk. So there you go. But yeah, back to your point, like, so this whole time this character's a bully, so he picks on John Cusack's character, picks on Curtis Armstrong, but anytime he insults Curtis Armstrong or insults anyone near him, Curtis Armstrong's character just laughs and thinks it's funny or doesn't get it, and it just completely deflates the bully, because they're like, if you're not going to react negatively to me making fun, I don't know what to do now.
Sometimes it pays to be a jerk. But see, this also shows, I mean, if you go through John Cusack's career and you go through all the different movies he does, this does kind of show you a lot of like the different kind of ranges of later characters that he does. His little sarcastic, his little like quips that are like, hey, F you too, and F me back. Okay, fine. Stuff like that. The banter that he has, that unfortunately, I mean, I hate to say this to Cusack fans like Randall Wotan, the man's career has not done so well lately. He hit the 2000s, and it was kind of hit or miss for him.
Yeah.
I know.
Very slow. And it's sad.
Well,
I mean, it's still there. It's still around. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
I totally agree with you, JP, that his quirky little um, his personality always shows through in all of his movies. And you're right, he does the little quips and he says the little asides and he has the little ticks and things that are, like you and I. We all have those thoughts. We all do those things even to ourselves, but he's human enough that we all kind of get him. You know what I'm saying? And he's just not the perfect actor or the perfect person or the most beautiful person on the screen. He just does it right. I loved Grosse Pointe Blank. It was one of my favorite movies. The music in it is so fantastic. And I bought the damn soundtrack as soon as I saw the movie. I had to go out and get the soundtrack. And that's what I like about him. All of the music in his shows are always good. And I think he has a hand in that. Don't quote me, but I think he does.
I definitely would probably agree with you on that because they just fit really well in the stuff that he does. I mean, yes, later he's produced and he's written because I mean, Grosse Pointe Blank is co-written by him, and I think even Dan Aykroyd polished some of his scenes with him, so it kind of shows like okay, there, and that's some of the best banter between anybody in a movie. Yeah, but again, going back to this movie, like I said, watching it now, I'm like, man, it's so weird and bizarre that I'm like, okay, so nostalgia eyes, okay, yeah, I enjoy it. Now, I I love asking because this is one of my favorite things to do. Can this movie be made now? Let me put that to everybody.
I think it could, but it would just not be worth it because I don't know. Like you could update it, but it would just not fall the same way because it would be forced quirkiness as opposed to actual quirkiness, if that makes any sense. So I think you could do it. I know that for one, the stalking in it is very light. I mean, there's obviously the obsessive in the beginning where he has pictures of his
beyond
girlfriend everywhere. But he's not following her around. There's some of the jokes that don't play as well, but you still see them, like where he's going to go ask the cheerleader out that's dating the entire basketball team and then accidentally pulls off her dress. And
she looks like she's in high school.
Yeah. I mean, it's in poor taste, but you still see that out there. I think they could do it and get away with it. I just don't think it would have the same cult following with a remake as it has with this. It would be interesting to see a more integrated cast, though. Like, what would they do with some of more up and coming variations? How would it play off if you put it from the perspective of somebody from the Latino community or somebody from the Black community? Like, what oddball creations could come out of that would be an interesting take because this is all white.
Different family dynamics with different racial, without being stereotypes. That's a hard line to walk. And this is all late 70s, early 80s sensibilities that we're watching here, because this is somebody's life kind of put into pictures just far out. You're right. It's going to be a whole different show now than it would be then. People don't say some of those things. People don't like to put stereotypes out there, and they're very cautious when it comes to making movies nowadays. So I don't think we have a savage Steve Holland out there that would make something like that, in my opinion.
But I think you could if you had somebody who was capable of it. I just don't think anybody's there right now.
I think the subject matter would be a little too hard to make light of. I mean, I know because yes, we have modern shows that deal with suicide and those, but they're more dramatic. You don't have the zaniness and the silliness that this movie, and that's the whole point of it. It is supposed to be over the top, zany, weirdness.
And if you make fun of something like that, then
it's triggering, and I think that's why it would be very tough to make this.
No, I'm not saying it'd be easy, and they probably would have to alter quite a bit, but I think you could do it. I don't think it's like on the no list. It's like when people say you can never do a Mel Brooks movie today. Oh, but you could,
But he is already. I
Well,
mean,
he is, and you could. I mean,
yeah.
like the
I'm so
reasons you're
happy.
saying that
I'm
you
so
couldn't,
happy.
you can see examples of where they say racial slurs left and right and stuff. Only, unfortunately, in the modern versions of stuff you see, they say racial slurs not in a way to educate you, but in a way just to be freaking insulting. So, when I hear those things, I'm like, but you could, and people do. They just don't do it well, and they don't do it blindly. Which back in the day, that's what they had was blindness. You know what I mean? Like there was no thought behind it. Like, well, I don't want to say there's no thought. So when Mel Brooks puts together something like Blazing Saddles and like the N word is thrown about, he's throwing it out, showing how ignorant people are using it. Like, I don't know if Mel Brooks really thought about that when he did it, but that's how it comes across. You have ignorant white people saying the N word who are like really the dumbest characters in the movie.
Right.
So it illustrates their ignorance. And I know a lot of people miss that, but that's what it does. And where if you watch a modern movie like Tarantino loves to throw the N-word every way he could possibly can, 6 ways to Sunday.
Good
and,
God. Yeah.
And it doesn't, do the same thing. It's just somebody using the N-word, So when they try to make the arguments that it can't be done, I'm like, it can be done. They just have to think about it more,
Yeah.
Think about it more. And there has to be a reason. Like, you wouldn't remake Blazing Saddles because why would you remake Genius? You know what I mean? How could you make it better? Or what would you do to make it something more,
Well,
so that's my thought about this too.
I'm with you on that. I have a problem with people want to remake some of the movies that I think are just right the way they are. There's no need to remake them. Use your talents and your skills to write something new. Some of them, they say it's a remake, but the whole story is almost 180 degrees off of what the original was. And it's just like, call it something else. Don't piggyback on somebody else's work just so you can get your story out there. Come on, do something original.
Yeah.
We'll get off my soapbox. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. We've had that many we've had that many of tales. I mean, and again, and even watching this now in now eyes, especially because you see some of the cast. I mean, I'm gonna I don't want to do disservice. So Dan Snyder is and has a prominent role in this movie.
He plays Ricky Smith.
He plays Ricky Smith. Dan Snyder right now is a difficult individual, if that's a nice way of putting it. If you look him up, there's been some
controversial about that.
I would say controversial, heinous, things that have said around him and what he's done. I mean, he ended up in the 80s. One of his bigger roles was head of the class after this, and then he started producing children's television for Nickelodeon in the 90s. And that's where a lot of some of the nastier things have come out about him kind of just being inappropriate with his words, his behavior. I mean, just a lot of suspect things. So it's it's kind of tough to okay, rose tinted glasses. This is a perfect movie. No, but
you can't use hindsight on something.
Exactly. You cannot use hindsight.
There's the art versus the artist thing, and he is a piece of this movie. The irony is what he plays in this movie is basically controversial and perverted as well. I mean, his whole character, his mother has a foreign exchange student come stay in his house to get him a girlfriend, and it's not overt, but it's overt, but it's not over the top. What happens on the tentacles versus testicles so anytime he's near this girl, he puts his arm around her. He tries to keep her to himself when they go to an event so that she's not on her own. So it's basically she's forced into the role of pseudo girlfriend. And it the way I say this is ironic because then later on in life the actual person that played the role is in a position of power where he can abuse, manipulate young people that are working under him. So it's kind of a creepy parallel.
So cinema becomes life.
Yeah. But I will say that in the movie it's meant to be seen that this is not right. It's not
right.
it's not really called out enough that it's not right and it's made light of, but it is clearly behavior that is being shown in the movie is not correct.
I think David Ogden Stiers pretty much makes his whole point about how it's not right, because he points it out. And then I think even Cusack kind of banters about it a little bit, but yeah.
And his character plays a little bit of a protective role in there, during the after dance thing.
But I kind of started to expect that from him, because you're starting to see that in his character arc, I guess is what you might want to say. But or maybe I'm just instilling my own thoughts into and how my own reaction would have been if I were in that situation.
Yeah. But so yeah.
All right, so now that I brought it back down, now
that went.
No, it's something to be noted. You want to call out these things are here so people are aware of what's happening for sure.
Yeah, especially if somebody who hasn't seen this movie, now what they know different actors, they'll look them up and that kind of stuff. So I mean, I guess I kind of gave my little take. I mean, it's still an odd, weird movie. I wouldn't say I loved it as much as I did before the first time I watched it, but now I don't know, Rick, what you watched it recently? I'm assuming, because you want to do this again. What's your take? You still love it? Still your favorite?
Yeah, I watch it at least twice a year.
There you go.
It's one of my favorites. I have to watch it. I'll just get in a silly mood. I want to watch it, but I have to watch it at Christmas every year. It's one of my have-to Christmas movies that I watch. And some people are like, Christmas movie? I'm like, dude, there's a whole Christmas scene in there.
That's true.
Several Christmas scenes in there, and I consider it a Christmas movie.
I agree with your categorization, though it's funny because I never really think about it, because even though Christmas is in there, it just doesn't. The rest of the weirdness always overtakes it. But yeah, it's set over Christmas. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah. What are we doing up here? I could be having some eggnog that my brother makes with lighter fluid.
Actually, that's something we haven't brought up. So another funny thing about this movie is they're supposed to be in a town that is so small that according to Curtis Armstrong's character, Charles Gamar, you can't even get real drugs. So his character is running around. It's just like, whipped cream cans, snorting Jello, just snorting snow off the mountaintop.
I mean, the scene of him snorting Jello. I mean, I lost it this because it had been Boston. I watched it, and I just lost it watching it with my in-laws. They just kind of they all looked at me like, "This is really funny to you." I go, "Yeah, this is really funny to me." Just because he's like, I mean, I don't know how they did that take with him actually not being able to do it, because he just hoses it down.
I couldn't find anything because I had looked this up years ago. Maybe there's something now. I forgot to look it up again. Did he actually snort?
I think he did. I would not. I mean, if ever I get a chance to meet him, because I like going to cons, I want to definitely ask him, did you snort it? Because holy cow, because it really does look like it, especially because it's Jello. The Jello, just the way it moves, it's
right.
And he just. I mean, I don't know. Even right now, I'm laughing about it because it's damn funny.
It is, and to show what a great actor he is, he offers offers her the straw.
Yeah,
it's just the little things. It's like the scene where he's holding the fetal pig, and he's talking to Lane after class, and he says, "I've been going to this high school for 7 years. I'm no dummy. I know high school girls."
7 years.
Beautiful.
It is. And I don't know what point Steve Holland was trying to make with that whole thing. It was supposed to be the ridiculousness of wanting to get high so bad that you will do anything. Was it a commentary on drug addiction, or was it just to be what's some weird shit we could do in a small town? I don't know.
I mean,
I got nothing, but it's hilarious. It shouldn't be. It's so funny.
It's definitely hey, let's just do some craziness.
Oh, and also, so we mentioned the TV dinner scene. So Kim Darby's character, Jenny Meyer, which is John Cusack's mother in the movie, is they have whoever came up with the disgusting food that she cooked was a mad genius. It was amazing. Like the first scene where they're having breakfast and she puts like that green mass on her husband's plate. Like until she says it's bacon, I have no idea. Bacon that she boiled. And later on when she puts like that weird gelatinous raisin mass.
It's got raisins in it.
And then it like crawls.
You like raisins.
It's got raisins in it.
The way the food just amoebas away.
And the reaction is just beautiful.
We're all like, and also, again, it shouldn't be funny. And I apologize. I know this is triggering for people in suicide and depression is a real issue. But like the failed suicide attempts, like the results of them sometimes. My favorite one is when he was, wrapped himself up in like sheets or curtains, tied a tie around his head and was going to douse himself. And some inflammatory thing that was in a jar. I don't know if it was kerosene, gasoline, whatever, that he had, paint thinner, something. And he gets called into dinner and sets it down next to Ricky's mom, who then drinks it and says it's fabulous liqueur. It tastes just like the moonshine that her son's father used to make, and then goes to light a cigarette and blows up her face. She lives. She just...
and the scene after that, I'm sorry your mom blew up, Ricky.
Yeah. I don't know, like I still think it's a hilarious movie, John Paul. Like I will die loving this movie.
Is it weird?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's totally
weird.
What
I find funny is like you honestly didn't realize it was weird when you watched it when you were little? Or when you were younger? Like how did that escape your attention?
I don't know. Like I said, because I've watched so many different kinds of weird and I mean, come on. I am known as, hey, you're gonna watch Trauma, right? And I'm like, yes, I'm gonna watch Trauma. Through a lot of my friends. So they're like, you're the one that likes the weird stuff. And I'm like, yes, I'm the guy that likes the weird stuff. And that's what I was. But like now I'm like, I've I now watch, Finder cup of movies, like The Menu.
Oh, the new one that was just on.
Exactly. Future episode, just to tease that.
It looks really good. I really want to watch it. So
I recommend it.
Very much recommend it.
Okay, good.
So I wouldn't say it's a horror. So if you go in line with a horror movie in a classic sense, let that go.
I don't know. Just I think suspense kind of.
There you go. Go with that.
Yeah. It's just a well-acted, well-written movie. That's my short review on The Menu.
It looks like it's got some dark humor to go along with it. So
sure.
I like a lot of the actors in there, so I think it's going to be fine.
It is
slam dunk for that.
But yeah. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, John Paul. I didn't mean to pick on you, but I was just like, how did you?
No. I know. How did I miss things?
I mean, so we haven't really covered this. We mentioned that there's animation in it. So Lane Meyer, John Cusack's character, is kind of like doing cartoons throughout the movie. Like it'd be cartoons of him and his girlfriend, and that'll lead to flashbacks of when they first met and weird traumatic things like the first time they had sex and just all these things. And the animation comes to life and will talk back to him. So he has interactions with his own animation. And I thought it was really brilliant for the time, brilliant period. Like I hadn't seen anybody else do that before.
The animation, and I didn't look it up, but I mean, it rivals kind of like the California Raisins animation from its time.
I would say the hamburger scene definitely does.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what
I'm talking about the other scenes where he was drawing and then.
Oh, he was drawing. Yeah, I mean,
he got someone else to do the stop motion.
Yeah.
He didn't do that himself.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I'm talking about what he was drawing as Lane Meyer and would interact.
Remember the monster ate the new boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then why you always do that? You're just a spastic narf bag.
The cartoon girlfriend is
yeah. And then the monster is like doing everything she's doing the same gestures, and that one's a really good animation. It opens up with kind of the lady in distress, knight in shining armor sort of thing, and that animation kind of reminds me of Mad Magazine a little bit. if you guys remember the beginning animation.
Yeah.
Very beginning. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Which is actually why I really, when I watched One Crazy Summer, I liked it even more because I had more of the weird animation in it with the scenes and coming to life. And yeah, so
more drawings.
Actually, I've loved almost every movie I saw of Steve Holland's. I've actually enjoyed. Some of them I should as much, but like I said, there's 80s and the 90s, there's just a whole bunch of not awareness. Like, so you'd have scenes where there's like, it wasn't so much in One Crazy Summer, that was pretty mild, but if you went and watched How I Got Into College, there's another like stalkery thing where like the main character, basically his whole college plan is to follow his crush into whatever college she goes to because he thought he'd stand a better chance, so that if she saw him as a college student and not as the persona that he had in high school. And it's not as bad as it could be, but
Wait,
the
so you're
premise is a
saying
little
that's
creepy.
not a wise thing to do? Is that
It's
what
a
you're
little
telling me?
creepy. Well, I mean, because he do stuff like listen in to when she's talking with her guidance counselor, and it's not just following her
I
from
do
room to
love that
room.
movie. I hate, I'm gonna admit it. I do love that movie.
Oh, I enjoy
And
the
I've
hell out
seen
of
it
How I
a
Got into College,
lot. I've
but that's a little
seen it
bit
a
of a
lot.
problematic theme.
Yeah, maybe
I mean,
so.
all that we're talking about once again, we're looking at the past with today's eyes.
Mhm.
Things that were accepted and able to put into movies back then, you could never say or do. The stereotypes and racial slurs and things of that nature is a no-no. I mean, look at the gay references. How many gay references do you get in the 80s and 90s that sometimes were not so great
No.
and did not
Yeah.
put a good light on things? So, yeah.
Yeah. Like there was, to your point, there was just an innocence where you watched it where you didn't think about it, unless you were a girl, you walked around and somebody was following you around, and then you have a whole new perspective on like why that's a problematic thing. So, and unfortunately, if you are a girl, you will probably encounter that at some point. So there you go.
Yeah, my wife had stalkers too, and back in her hometown. So yeah, I've been told about it.
Yeah.
Um, and
But
it,
I mean, when you enjoy something, you just kind of slip past the part. And
yeah,
again, like I said, in these particular movies, they're lighter. Like I said, there's no sense of menace in it. Um, and
and
like I said, the
like you said,
character's
he's not
literally not
following her
following her
around.
around.
Yeah, yeah. He's not sitting outside watching her house, and he's not going to every place she goes, and which
Yeah.
some guys do.
Yeah.
Kind of creepy.
Whole different world there, but yeah.
Yeah. Side note.
Sorry.
So on that
Yeah.
note,
Side note, in the Air Force, when I was in the Air Force, I had a friend from New York, and he thought his move was to stand across the room and just stare at the girl. I mean, just stare at her nonstop, thinking that she's going to come to him. And I finally had to go over to him and say, Paul, you need to stop. You're freaking everybody out. This does not work. It doesn't work. Stop it. And he had to be told. He thought it worked. It was his move. I'm like, dude, maybe it worked once. It does not work here. And it's been obvious. Step up.
That thing you're doing, it's not really what you think.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
John Paul, you
boy.
need to stop doing that to people too. No, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. I've learned.
Point taken.
Um, okay, so you got my take on, whether we'd watch this again. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Recommend it. It's a fun watch. It's zany, it's weird. Like I said, gives you flares of the John Hughes. So yeah, I mean, and if you are a fan of John Cusack, this is definitely a fun one to watch some of his earlier zaniness that he is, and you'll see stuff just kind of continuously build on the type of actor and character that he is. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's streaming on quite a few different platforms right now, I believe, if I
Is it?
remember right.
This
Let me
movie?
do a check.
I think.
Let's see. Watch movie.
Google Machine has
Um,
it, says Showtime has
yeah,
it
it
with
doesn't
a
look like anything
subscription.
free though. Everything is usually
Nothing
with a
free, but
subscription.
yeah. Yeah. So Google, Hulu, and you can buy
Amazon
it on,
Prime.
yeah, get it on Vudu for $3.99 if you guys are interested. I mean,
It's worth it.
it's worth it. So
It's definitely worth $3.99. Yeah.
yeah,
And we
so
have
that's
French
my hot take.
fries and Peru.
So Jenny, give your final thoughts on this now.
This I'm always going to love this movie. It's just I can't imagine a world where I will not appreciate just the highlighting of the oddballs and like, seeing something on screen that like maybe your own brain had done when you were young or maybe still does. Um, Obviously to the point there's some humor that is not appropriate and not so funny anymore for sure, if funny at all. There's, problematic actors behind some of the roles, but it's so bizarre and just so fun in general that I just think everybody should watch it once at least, and just to have a good time with it. I recommend somebody who's seen the movie tries to put together a buffet of Jenny Meyer's cooking that is actually edible, and then you have like dinner and a movie.
Wow.
See if you can make a tasty Jello mold that doesn't actually run away.
That is a
Some green
challenge.
spaghetti. I don't know for the bacon.
Good Lord, you just made the next TikTok challenge.
So Rick, unfortunately, you have to go last and tell us how terrible and how disappointed you are with this movie and all of your sadness about it. No, I'm kidding. Just tell us your final thoughts on. I mean, you say you watch it twice a year, right?
Yep, at least.
At least.
I highly recommend the movie. It's a slice of 1985 in across America. Just pretty much, you could pick characters out of there that you went to high school with, or characters you run into, and it's such a quotable movie. And if you don't take it as cinema fantastique, it's just fun, down to earth, crazy humor that not to be taken seriously, just taken lightly, and just let it come in. Just enjoy it, quote along with it, see it with a lot of people that've seen it, and you can all have fun just remembering the movie together. And I kind of like your challenge about making the food. I'm really thinking about
Your
that.
next Christmas dinner going to be like that,
Right? You like corn. I did once think about giving those frozen dinners as a Christmas gift as a joke.
That would be amazing.
They're not the same anymore, though. Like you don't have the tin.
They're not the tin anymore, and you can't
Yeah,
unroll them or whatever, like the
yeah.
old sardine tins.
Hungry man.
So,
Yeah.
so Rick, it's time for you to plug away anything you wish to plug about yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we didn't in the intros we didn't talk much about. I am an artist. I'm a graphic artist. I do a lot of different things, logos, cartoons. I have 3 children's books. Um, my first one, the monsters made me do it, is about
That sounds
lying.
amazing.
Yeah, sorry, the blame it on the monsters. I got my own book messed up. No, it's blame it on the monsters. So every time these little kids get in trouble, they blame it on a different monster. And it starts off as a little white lie, and every time they tell a bigger lie, it's a bigger monster. So it kind of tells a story, but it also, gives a little lesson while you're doing it. My second one, my mom, my hero, is about a 3rd grade class, and they're asked to come in and do a show and tell and talk about their moms. And so all my books have little monsters in it. So this is an actual class of little monsters, and they talk about their mom monsters, and they have jobs like you and I. So it's everything from a police officer to a baby doctor. Angela Ann is one of our friends. So we had her daughter, Emmy, as a vampire bat, and her mom was the anchor on the TV. So It's a fun thing, and it's a real good Mother's Day present that I kind of did with one of my friends asked me to consider doing the book, and so that was my second book. And my third one is Cluck-a-Muck in a Pickup Truck. And it's about a chicken who someone mistakenly called a duck, and so he goes about town spreading feathers around to get revenge on the whole town because he thinks that's what they think about him. And it's about turning the other cheek and not having road rage and stuff of that nature. But yeah, so
I should probably read that book.
And where can we get these books at?
They're all on Amazon. You can go on Amazon, look up Richard A. Isbell, or Blame It on the Monsters, My Mom, My Hero, or Cluck-a-Muck in a Pickup Truck.
Oh, also show that T-shirt again because it's amazing.
Oh,
Sorry.
This was a piece that I did during COVID, and of course you can see it's the plague doctor, and he's got the rose here, and it's called "Stop and Smell the Roses."
Amazing.
So,
it really is amazing. That's
one of my pieces. I have a lot of fun. Recently I've been trying to try different things and do different stuff, and I've got an iPad, and it's so much depth to it. It's so wonderful, and I'm just trying to make things better and try different stuff out. So it's been a lot of fun. I recommend anybody that wants to draw to go on to the Inktober website on Facebook or whatever, and they give you like little prompts on a weekly basis up until October, and then in October you get a prompt every day, and it's something different to draw. And so it's a good way to just keep getting your skills up and doing things and trying new stuff. I love to draw. I love to paint.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So thanks, guys, for letting me plug that. That was really nice of you.
Oh, no. Happy to.
We are very happy to, yeah.
I call my studio I for I Studio. I, the number 4, N-I Studio. So if you want to look that up too, it's out there, and you can see some stuff I do.
Great.
And thanks for having me on here. I hope you guys have me on another time in the future.
Definitely.
I would love to do this again.
Yay.
Yay. We're going to definitely take you up on that.
All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot, and I appreciate you doing this show.
Appreciate you being on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, this has been Jenny, John Paul, and Rick, and this has been What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? And we have been discussing Better Off Dead. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you watch the movie and then you understand why we're so like we are, because that's what we grew up on. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
You have been listening to
What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube at WTF Did I Just Watch? Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us again soon.